It is my pleasure to introduce to you the man that brought this competition to the University of North Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joseph Apong, Associate Dean of the Graduate School.
Good morning, and thank you for giving us your Saturday morning. I'm Joseph, and I've been here forever, perhaps longer than the graduate students that have been alive. I've been here since 1992 as a faculty member, and I've been in the graduate school for about 12 years. We started the 3-minute thesis competition to try to help our students to be successful. Your typical graduate student is good at doing their research and talking about their research to their colleagues. But when it comes to talking about the research to people who are not experts in their field, they struggle. When they go to an interview situation and they have to talk about their research, sometimes they cannot, because they're used to talking in technicalese. We're training excellent graduate students via Research One University, and we want our students to go out there and make a difference in the world. But it's difficult to make a difference in the world when people cannot understand what you're talking about. As a graduate dean, I could require all our graduate students to take an extra course in communication, scientific communication. But that would affect the time to degree. It would also increase the cost of graduate education. Wouldn't it be great if there was a fun, exciting way to encourage graduate students to speak and to communicate meaningfully about their research? Communicating to the community the research that takes place at the university campus. And perhaps equipping our students to be more successful in the market. Now, that is where the 3MT comes in. The 3-minute thesis competition allows students or requires students to talk about their research meaningfully in 3 minutes, using just one slide. And in the process of doing that, they learn to become better, effective communicators. So I can assure you that you have a real treat this morning. Our students have been working hard. They are all excited about presenting their research. And so without further ado, I'm just going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to run us through. We started this about 10 plus, it's almost 10 years now, and so we're going to continue to do this. Thank you very, very much, and welcome to UNT. Mike.
Thank you, Dr. Opong. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to the competition. My name is Mike Sexton. I'm the principal lecturer in management, and I teach strategy and, of course, management and family business. Well, welcome again to the competition, and this competition will be televised. It is also recorded, and it's being live streamed to 12 countries. I'd like to remind you that this competition originally started in Australia and was imported into Europe and into the United States. So the winner from this competition, that recorded presentation, will go on to nationals. If they win nationals, they go on to the international competition. All right, please hold on to your, let's see what we have, excuse me. When you open your program, you will notice a ballot to cast your vote. Please hold on to your ballots until all contestants have completed the presentation. The 3MT is judged based on 2 very broad criteria: comprehension and content, and engagement and communication. The first refers to the student's ability to explain the dissertation research in a clear and effective manner. The second deals with stage presence and the contestant's ability to grab your attention. Our judges will be watching the contestants and scoring them on a scale from 1 to 10. The good news for our contestants is first place winner will take home $3,000. The runner-up will receive $2,000, and you will vote and decide as an audience the People's Choice winner for $1,000. With that, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our judges. And these people have given their time to be with us today. I'd like to start with Ms. Dina Sanchez, an Alteryx ace director of the Alteryx practice at Keyrush Consulting, and a proud alumna of the UNT Geography Department. She's led the Alteryx practice and the geospatial analytics for Keyrush, specializing in spatial, demographic, and advanced data analytics for over 20 years. Her degree in geography with concentrations in GIS and medical geography enable her to consult in numerous verticals. Ms. Sanchez co-leads the DFW Alteryx user group with over 500 members and is on the Dallas chapter of Women in Data Leadership team. In 2017, she was honored to receive the Alteryx for Good Champion Award. Ms. Sanchez believes that any amount of volunteering creates expanded ripples of good throughout the community. Our next judge is Mrs. Janet Bracken, a proud alumna and a holder of a Bachelor of Arts degree in nonprofit management. She worked for the Hicks, Muse, Tate, and First private equity firm and Syntex Home Builders Corporation. Mrs. Bracken transitioned to nonprofit, where she directed the Big Brothers Big Sisters of North Texas Generations program. She's demonstrated long-term commitment by serving as a big sister to 3Us, chairing the Black Tie Balls in 2010 and 2011, and serving on the board of directors for 7 years. She and her husband, Frank, also co-chaired the UNT $250 million capital campaign in 2015. And especially to my heart, she joined the College of Business Advisory Board in 2016 and has served as past chair. Mrs. Bracken is active in the Dallas and Denton communities, raising funds for the Pickens Hospice and Palliative Care Center, joining Our Daily Bread Women's League, and participating in the Denton Benefit League. Our third judge is Dr. Thomas Tommy White. He earned his PhD from the University of Oklahoma. He is currently the Senior Vice President for Marketing at DADCU, and this is where he leads both the Community Relations and Marketing departments. Prior to DADCU, Dr. White was in primary and secondary education as the Executive Director of the Louisville ISD Education Foundation. He also served as Director of Development and Alumni Relations Communications at the University of Oklahoma and at the University of Texas at Arlington. Dr. White currently sits on the Board of Directors for Petty Place and the NCTC Education Foundation Board. He loves to participate in anything sports related, from baseball to hiking to competitive breaking. Yes, competitive breaking, ladies and gentlemen. All right, those were our judges. Let's have a round for our judges, please. And now it's time to invite our first finalist to the stage. First up is Regina Burns with the Department of History in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. The title of the presentation is America's First African American Barber College Chain.
When Jamie Foxx, the Oscar and Grammy winner, grew up in his native Terrell, Texas, he used to get his haircut at Morrow's Barbershop. Now, getting a haircut doesn't sound like such a big deal, but in fact, it's a part of a rich historical narrative. You see, the founders of Morrow's Barbershop graduated from an elite organization. It was America's first African-American barber college chain. It was named Tyler Barber College Chain. Tyler Barber College Chain was founded during the Great Depression and Jim Crow segregation. What exactly was Jim Crow segregation? It was government-sanctioned oppression against African Americans. They had to endure horrendous circumstances, such as racial violence, lynching, political and economic oppression, signs that bark, "No dogs, no Negroes, no Mexicans." Nevertheless, they stayed focused and built their own institutions to further their success and progress. My research using primary sources led me to the founder. His name was Henry Miller Morgan. He was a Texas African-American barber, businessman, and state NAACP leader. But let's really understand why Tyler Barber College chain came into existence. You see, Texas passed its 1929 barber license law, and that law mandated that all barbers had to be trained. But because of segregation, African Americans couldn't go to white barber schools, so they had no way to get the license. When Morgan started Tyler Barber College chain, he expanded it from his native Tyler, Texas, across the United States. I discovered Tyler Barber College chain trained 80% of the nation's African American barbers. But let's just really understand more broadly the success of Tyler Barber College chain. Using oral history as a research method, I spoke to Edmund Morrow from Morrow's Barbershop in Terrell, as well as Johnny Crawford. Now, Johnny Crawford and his wife Shirley built successful businesses in the Dallas area. And by the way, Johnny Crawford is still cutting hair today in Dallas, Oak Cliff, and Edmund Morrow is still cutting hair in Terrell. They're both semi-retired. What's the significance of my research? Quite simply, it's this. During a time of economic oppression, segregation, Tyler Barber College chain changed the economic pathway for African Americans, including women, so they could pursue the American dream.
Thank you, Regina. Our next contestant is Jennifer Castillo with the Department of Curriculum and Instruction in the College of Education. The title of the presentation is Examining the Experiences of Pre-Service Bilingual Teachers.
Teaching is one of the most important professions in the world. Certainly, we can all agree the value and the impact that teachers have on our children and the future of our country. But today, America faces one of its biggest challenges that may have dire consequences in the molding of our future: bilingual teacher shortage. My research will be centered around connecting with pre-service bilingual teachers and hearing about their experiences in their bilingual teacher preparation program. Let me talk to you about why this work is so important. With the number of Latino population increasing each year in the United States, there has been a specific need for bilingual teachers. Unfortunately, districts are currently struggling to fill in those positions. And as a result, we've seen districts offer visas to bilingual teachers from other countries. We've also seen districts hire uncertified bilingual teachers with the hope that they get certified by the end of the school year. In the worst cases, we've seen districts place monolingual teachers in bilingual teacher positions just to have a teacher in the classroom. Now, I could go and ask administrators and professors in bilingual teacher preparation programs their thoughts and their reasoning behind this teacher shortage, but what better way to answer those questions than to ask the people who are actually enrolled in those programs? And I'm talking about our pre-service bilingual teachers. And so with my research, I look to connect with them and actually hear their stories, hear their experiences. What are some of their needs? What are some of their needs that are not being met? Now, secondly, I believe that, it is important, of course, to celebrate the amazing work that these programs are already producing, right? There's a lot of great work out there. But I also find it productive to explore some of the areas of growth. And so, with my research, I hope to gather that data to help inform teacher preparation programs. And in that way, kind of help combat that bilingual teacher shortage that we are experiencing. I also find it important for researchers to honor their participants, their narrators, by sharing their stories and their experiences. And so, like I said, with my participants' help, I hope to use that data to inform those teacher preparation programs. Before I go, I'd like to leave you with this. Teachers are often, so often overlooked and undervalued. But teaching is the only profession that creates all other professions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Our next contestant is An Dung with the Department of Educational Psychology in the College of Education. The title of the presentation is Be Generous with Your Self-Compassion.
Have you ever noticed how when it comes to compassion, we tend to be generous with other people, but stingy with ourselves? What do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. Imagine this. One of your close friends is going through a difficult time of their lives. What would you do? Would you show up for them? Would you become their biggest supporter and cheerleader? Now, think back to the last time that you experienced a setback. What did you do? Do you call yourself stupid? Do you think that you are a loser, a mess, or maybe you're just not good enough? That's what I meant when I say that we tend to be generous with our self-compassion for other people, but stingy with ourselves. This brings to my mind a classical image of having an uncompassionate inner voice on one shoulder and a compassionate inner voice on the other shoulder. Both are fighting for our attention at the same time. The uncompassionate voice would tell you that you're not good enough, so you need to work harder. Be more tough on yourself. Beat yourself up more. Otherwise, you're going to become weak, lazy, you're going to get left behind. In contrast, your compassionate voice would tell you that you are enough. See yourself for who you are, not who you are not. Give yourself more credits. And treat yourself with the same kindness, patience, love, and support that you would give your friends who's going through that difficult time. As if these two voices are in a constant battle inside our head, shaping the way that we treat ourselves in the face of adversity. In my research, I studied the relation between uncompassion, self-compassion, and how students manage stress in school. I conduct my research here at the University of North Texas, where we have a vibrant and diverse student populations. Findings from my research indicate that students with high self-compassion also report higher success at managing school-related stress. In contrast, students with high uncompassion would report lower capacity of managing this kind of stress. So what does this mean? If you are a student, I urge you, treat yourself with kindness, patience, grace, and love, as if you would have treated a friend. It's going to do you more good in the long run. It's going to help you deal with setback better, manage stress better, and recover from dips in motivation more effectively. And if you are a faculty member, a family member, or anyone who remotely care about student success in higher education, please remind your students to listen to their inner compassionate voice. Together, with the right kind of support, we can empower all students to be more generous with their self-compassion. Thank you.
Thank you, An. Our next contestant is Kimberly Ferner with the Department of Educational Psychology in the College of Education. The title of the presentation is Beyond Words, the Impact of Coaching Actions.
Imagine being part of a team and your team leader constantly criticizes you. They focus on your flaws, they focus on your weaknesses, and they treat you different than everybody else. How would that make you feel? You're probably feeling discouraged, not very motivated. Maybe you want to quit. But why would your team leader who wants your team to do well treat you like that. As a former athlete who quit a sport I loved because of a negative coach experience, I'm always intrigued with this question. Coaches are leaders within the athletic environment. They rely on their athletes and their teams to perform well. So why would coaches treat their athletes poorly? To answer this question, I interviewed coaches and their athletes to look at the difference between what coaches are saying they're doing and what they're actually doing. And I found there's two different types of coaches. So we have a coach that can talk the talk. They can talk about athlete development. They can talk about being consistent. They can talk about creating a positive sport experience, but they have no way to verbalize how they're implementing that in their practice. And so when I talk to their athletes, they report their coaches are inconsistent, they never know what they want from them, they value winning over athlete development. And this creates this negative sport experience for these athletes to the point where they don't even want to play anymore. And then we have coaches who walk the walk. They have strategies and can verbalize how they're promoting athlete development, how they're acting consistently. And their athletes reflect this. Athletes feel supported. Athletes understand what their coaches expect of them. And so it creates this positive sport experience, and they feel they can go to their coach when they're having issues. They can go to their coach for anything. Now, what sets these coaches apart, right? What's the difference here? What I found in my research was coach education and self-reflection. So coaches who struggled to implement those consistent practices, implementing some type of athlete development, they didn't have the opportunity to engage in coach education, and they weren't self-reflecting. And so what we can do, what my research has helped with to understand is, okay, why are coaches not practicing what they preach? And with that knowledge, how can we now tailor a coach education program to promote this, something. That's great. And with the goal of we want our athletes to have these positive sport experiences. And my research focuses on, instead of being on a team where you feel discouraged, you want to feel empowered. And that's the point that my research is going to promote. Thank you.
And thank you, Kimberly. Our next contestant is Adrian Heckert with the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology in the College of Science. The title of the presentation is Flying Under the Radar, Fingerprinting the Metabolism of Histoplasma capsulatum.
When I was growing up, my grandpa often coughed a lot. We would get mad at him for never covering his mouth. And while he had no good reason not to cover his coughs, I now wonder if his constant exposure to dust and soil on the job had something to do with it. This is where Histoplasma capsulatum comes in, a fungus that hides inside your body's immune cells, which should normally act as the body's frontline defender against pathogens like histoplasma. For many like my grandpa, though, in blue-collar communities, exposure to this soil-dwelling fungus poses serious health risks, especially for those with weakened immune systems. Yet, fungal diseases like this are among the most under-researched. Today, there are no FDA-approved fungal vaccines, and there are only a limited number of antifungal drugs to address these illnesses. The need for new treatments is urgent. However, there's still so much we don't know about histoplasma, particularly how it survives within the human body. But imagine if we could uncover the specific nutrients that histoplasma consumes within our immune cells. This knowledge could certainly expand our arsenal in fighting this pathogen. For example, if we can block the uptake of these nutrients, we can cut off histoplasma's energy supply, preventing it from surviving and multiplying. Moreover, because other pathogens may utilize similar nutrient sources, these findings have broader implications for combating other diseases. So, how do we identify the nutrients that histoplasma consumes? Well, when a microorganism consumes a nutrient, it leaves behind a unique metabolic fingerprint, a distinct collection of small molecules inside of itself. By growing histoplasma on various nutrient sources and comparing these fingerprints to histoplasma grown inside immune cells, we identified the building blocks of proteins known as amino acids that histoplasma consumes to proliferate. As fungal infections become an increasing threat, identifying these amino acids as essential nutrient sources is a crucial step forward. By targeting histoplasma's unique nutritional needs, we're not only advancing the fight against fungal diseases, we're also protecting the most vulnerable lives in our communities, including my grandpa's. This research brings us closer to a future where fungal diseases no longer fly under the radar. Thank you.
And thank you, Adrian. Our next contestant is Brooke Poplin with the Department of Biology in the College of Science. The title of the presentation is Hawks in the City, using Harris's hawks to evaluate predator adaptations to urban environments.
Bats, rats, and snakes. If one of those words made you shudder just now, don't worry, you're not alone. Among these are some of the most abundant pest populations that we have here in the United States, especially in urban areas like Denton, Texas. Controlling these populations is generally ineffective and can be really expensive. However, there's one way that's virtually free and very effective, and that is by bolstering their predator populations, specifically predators like hawks and falcons. Hawks and falcons are very adaptable to urban areas because their top predator, humans, have not yet colonized the sky. They provide us invaluable ecosystem services. They're kind of like the Orkin of urban environments. They protect our infrastructure from infestation and control abundant disease vectors such as house rats. But raptors are having a hard time settling in. Despite the ecological niche that's available to them, with human activity comes a myriad of new threats to them, such as electrocution, sound pollution, and traffic and window collision. Harris's hawks, however, are different. Harris's hawks are social raptors. They form groups of 2 to 7 individuals, then they live and they hunt in these groups. No wonder they're called the wolves of the sky. It is hypothesized that this social behavior evolved to allow Harris's hawks to exploit challenging desert habitats. However, in the last 20 years, Harris's hawks have rapidly been moving their populations from challenging desert habitats into arguably more challenging urban habitats, and they're doing so really successfully. We want to understand the mechanisms that are available to these Harris's hawks that allow them to do this with so much success that other raptors don't have. To do this, we are investigating behavior and home range. To study Harris's hawk behavior, I am fitting Harris's hawks with VHF radio transmitters. These allow me to go straight to where the Harris's hawk is perched, collect direct behavioral observations, and then I can use Bayesian modeling to compare their behavior across a gradient of different habitats to see what urban Harris's hawks are doing that allowed them to be so successful in contrast with natural dwelling Harris's hawks and other raptors that aren't as successful. What about home range though? Mapping out a home range involves collecting locations of a raptor in its natural territory. To collect these locations, it costs us $68 per location using radio transmitters. That's a lot of money, especially when you need to collect a minimum of 25 locations per hawk to be able to do a home range analysis. So I had to get a little bit creative to achieve this goal. I'm now the first wildlife biologist to fit Harris's hawks with Apple AirTags. These Apple AirTags allow me to pick up my iPhone, open up the Find My app, and get a location on the Harris's hawks for only 17 cents per location, 400% cheaper than those with radio transmitters. But what about the bats, rats, and snakes, right? Well, by introducing predator populations into our urban areas, such as hawks and falcons, this will make our urban areas healthier and us healthier in return. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. Our next contestant is Karen Reyes with the Department of Chemistry in the College of Science. The title of the presentation today is UNT's Fight Against Opioid Epidemic, a National Security Threat.
The United States is currently dealing with a fentanyl crisis that has killed over 74,000 people in 2023 alone. We need to urgently reduce this number in the upcoming years. Now, in a medical setting, fentanyl is a reason for several clinical success stories. Yet, this same drug that is used to realize complex surgeries and to help patients deal with severe pain is the same drug that is the leading cause of death among young Americans. Now, how many of you buy medication online? Well, just this year alone, dozens of fake online drugstores that sold millions of fake prescription pills, some of which contained lethal amounts of fentanyl, were shut down across the US. Now, what you might not know is that 211 fentanyl drugs exist, and it's very important for scientists to be able to detect and distinguish between these drugs. Why is this? Well, if you were paying attention to Walter White and Breaking Bad, you might remember that the smallest change in the chemical structure can significantly alter a drug's strength. Take carfentanil, for example. The only difference between fentanyl, which is administered to humans, and carfentanil, which is used to sedate large mammals, such as elephants, is the presence of a single functional group. While one compound has it, the other one doesn't. This highlights the importance of being able to distinguish between these drugs, because you kind of want to know which one you're dealing with, right? Well, this is where my PhD thesis comes in. We have successfully developed 3 methods and created 3 databases to help scientists detect and distinguish between these extremely dangerous drugs. First, using some of the most high-tech instrumentation on the market, I developed a method that is able to detect very, very low quantities of this drug. Next, using this method, I analyze some of the fentanyl drugs that we know of. Once I do this, I gather up all the data and use it to create a database. And you can think of a database as a reference manual scientists use in order to identify compounds in question. So in addition to this, I also go through the data to find any trends that we can use to identify any new and never before seen fentanyl drugs. And this is becoming extremely important because we are seeing new fentanyl drugs popping up on the black market every single day. And we want to know what's being made and distributed in order to keep our loved ones safe. Because you do not want to find yourself or your loved ones overdosing on fentanyl when you thought you were buying pure oxycodone, Xanax, or Adderall from a reputable online drugstore. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Karen. Our next contestant is Vihavi Srinivasan with the Department of Biology in the College of Science. The title of the presentation today is Effects of Methylmercury Exposure on Complex Behaviors in Fathead Minnows.
Did you know that the primary source of protein for 1/3 of the world's population is seafood, and its consumption is the major source of mercury exposure to humans? When you eat your favorite seafood, did you ever think it might contain traces of mercury that you're consuming? If you haven't thought about it, well, I think you should give it a thought. Mercury is a chemical that exists everywhere in the environment. Mercury can be released into the environment by natural sources like volcanic eruptions, forest fires, or man-made activities like industrial emissions and mining activities. Mercury can exist in different forms. When mercury gets into the water, it can be acted upon by bacteria, which converts it to the most toxic form, which is the organic form called as methylmercury. This organic form, methylmercury, can readily enter into aquatic organisms, particularly fish. Fish can take up methylmercury from the water through the food they eat. One of the concerning effects of methylmercury is its ability to bioaccumulate in fish over time. Methylmercury is a neurotoxin that can target the central nervous system and can cause a bunch of different effects like behavioral effects, reproductive effects, developmental effects, and so on. My research focused on looking at the effects of methylmercury on complex behaviors such as aggression, social behavior, and learning behavior in fathead minnows. I exposed the fathead minnows to methylmercury through their diet and studied their behaviors using different behavioral assays, such as the mirror test for aggression, the sociability assay for the social behavior, and maze learning behaviors. The findings from my research have shown that methylmercury-exposed fish were more aggressive, their social behavior was reduced, their learning abilities were reduced, as well as the overall swimming activity was reduced. Now you might think, why should we care about all these complex behaviors? Well, these complex behaviors are important for fish as it helps them to escape predators, helps them to find food, shelter, mates, etc. And if these complex behaviors are impaired due to methylmercury, it can have significant implications on fish survival. Extensive research have been done to look at the effects of methylmercury on simple behaviors in fish, but not a lot of research focuses on complex behaviors. That's where my research comes into play, and findings from my research have shown that methylmercury can significantly impair those complex behaviors. Now, these complex behaviors like aggression, social behavior, learning behaviors are all behaviors that are also seen in humans and is relevant to humans. And if these effects are seen in fish, we might also think that these behavioral effects can also occur in humans, as humans are also getting exposed to methylmercury through fish consumption. Therefore, my research is important from a human health standpoint and will also help in predicting the long-term impacts of methylmercury on fish and also on human health. Thank you.
Thank you, Vejavi. Our next contestant today is Daniela Vargas Trujillo with the Department of Chemistry in the College of Science. The title of the presentation today is The Road Toward Discovering Better Metals.
Did you know that an ounce of palladium and platinum costs almost $1,000, whereas an ounce of nickel is only 50 cents? Crazy, right? But why do we care? Well, precious metals like palladium and platinum are very important. And even though we don't see them, they're all around us. We find them in cars, electronics, we use them to make medicines and to make synthetic materials. The reason why these metals are so expensive comes down to availability. These metals are very hard to find, and we only find them in small quantities in very specific locations, making things around us a bit more expensive than they should. And if we think about it, as time goes on, it's just going to be harder and harder to find these metals, making things more and more expensive. So better alternatives are needed. Base metals like copper, zinc, nickel, and iron are a lot cheaper, and we find them in very large quantities. So why don't we use these metals already? Well, it's a bit more complicated than we think. These cheap metals do not have some of the great properties that the expensive metals have, making them not very useful. But if we combine some small molecules to these cheap metals, we can make them behave more like the expensive ones. And that is when my research comes into play. By studying a cheap nickel compound, I was seeing how different molecules affected its properties while comparing it to the neighbors of palladium and platinum. For instance, one small molecule may help this nickel behave more like the expensive metals, whereas a different molecule may do the exact opposite. While doing this, I realized that the number of small molecules that could be attached to these cheap metals are just way too many. So it would be just impossible to study them all in the lab. And that is when artificial intelligence came to my help. Calculations that could take days or even weeks could be done in just a couple of seconds. So, by using a relatively small number of results I obtained in the lab through experiments and computer calculations, artificial intelligence generated a large number of data that told me a bit more about the properties of these compounds, which ones could be useful and could exist in real life. By the end, I had a list of about 5,000 compounds, and out of these, only about 200 were going to be useful. So now, we can go back to the lab and start testing them. And instead of spending a lot of time, money, and resources by testing a very large number of compounds, we start with a small set of 200 we find. This is only a small stepping stone on the long road of finding better metals. But hopefully, one day, we're going to find the perfect combination between a cheap metal and small molecules that could help us replace the more expensive metals, making things like medicines and electronics cheaper and more affordable for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. Our next contestant is Deepak Vikraman Pillai with the Department of Materials Science Engineering in the College of Engineering. The title of the presentation today is Expanding the Limits of Titanium Alloys for Safer, More Efficient Aircraft.
I would like to start by recounting two recent alarming aircraft accidents. In one, an Alaskan Airlines experienced a terrifying moment when a window came off mid-flight. In another, a United Airlines flight lost one of its landing gear the moment after its takeoff. Fortunately, both incidents did not lead to a catastrophe. Now, imagine what happens if the landing gear fails entirely during its touchdown. Thankfully, landing gear components are made up of titanium alloys, which are strong, reliable, and performs exceptionally well under normal conditions. Titanium alloys are also lightweight and resistant to corrosion, making them ideal for various aerospace applications. However, there is a catch. When exposed to high temperature, these alloys lose their strength and cannot handle the stress effectively. In high temperature environments, such as an aircraft engine, nickel-based superalloys are used because they can withstand the heat. But nickel-based superalloys are much heavier, which adds to the aircraft's payload. More weight means more fuel consumption, higher cost, and lower efficiency. That's where my research comes in. My goal is to extend the use of titanium alloys into high temperature applications. By re-engineering their microstructure, I aim to make titanium not only strong in room temperature, but also resistant in higher temperatures. Achieving this would reduce aircraft's weight, improve fuel efficiency, and ultimately makes air travel more affordable. To accomplish that, I am developing a titanium-based superalloy analogous to the current nickel-based superalloy. I am using advanced techniques such as transmission electron microscopy and atom probe tomography to explore how we can push the limits of titanium. In conclusion, my research could lead to lighter, more fuel-efficient aircraft that can perform well under extreme conditions. Imagine cheaper, safer aircraft with less environmental impacts. This is the future I am working towards. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Our next contestant is Amber Williams with the Department of Clinical Psychology in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. The title of the presentation is The Imposter Phenomenon, Resilience and Diversity in Psychology.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me first start with a personal story. I vividly remember my first year of graduate school, sitting in a classroom surrounded by brilliant minds, yet feeling like an outsider. I kept questioning my place in the clinical psychology program despite my achievements and credentials. It turns out I wasn't alone in feeling this way. Many of my peers, particularly those from underrepresented backgrounds, struggled with the same sense of self-doubt, often known as the imposter phenomenon or imposter syndrome. This shared experience inspired my research on how resilience and self-doubt might shape minority students' career paths in psychology, potentially impacting the diversity of our field. Today, racial and ethnic minorities are still underrepresented in psychology, a gap that diminishes the quality of care that minority communities receive and limits access to culturally competent mental health services. My research, my study, focused on how these factors could influence students' decisions to pursue advanced psychology degrees. I surveyed both undergraduate and graduate students on their experiences with imposter feelings and their own perception of resilience. The findings showed that resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity, was a critical factor in students' intentions to apply to graduate programs. Surprisingly, there were no major differences in imposter feelings across ethnic groups, which suggests that this experience is more widespread and complex than initially thought. The implications are clear. If we want a psychology workforce that reflects society's diversity, then we must address these barriers early. This includes culturally sensitive support that builds resilience and confidence in minority communities, ensuring that they have the tools they need to succeed and to feel like they belong. By fostering resilience and creating an inclusive environment through mentorship, we can work toward a more representative, effective mental health care system. This is an ongoing journey, but with additional research and collaborative action, we can make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Our next contestant is joining us from California via Zoom. Tracy Mendolia with the Department of Learning Technologies in the College of Information. The title of the presentation is Academic Dishonesty in the Age of AI, Connecting Student Generative AI Use and the Fraud Triangle Within Health Professions Education.
Imagine being a student under immense stress with multiple deadlines, high expectations to succeed. We've all been there. Now imagine that there's a tool right at your fingertips that you can help finish your assignments faster that may be considered unethical. That's the reality that many students face today with generative AI tools like ChatGPT. These AI tools are designed to help, but for some students, there's a temptation to misuse them. Now, academic dishonesty isn't a new issue. In fact, cheating has been around for centuries, and as technology evolves, so do the methods that students use. Many Gen AI tools claim to be study aids designed to help with writing or brainstorming, but their social media accounts tell a much different story. Here, these same tools are marketed as shortcuts, with influencers showing how to use AI to write entire papers or complete exams. My research focused on graduate medical students who experience a unique pressure in a highly competitive environment. I set out to understand how they're using these AI tools, why they might want to misuse them, and how we can address this growing issue. To guide my research, I used the fraud triangle, which is a business framework that is ideal for understanding academic fraud. The fraud triangle identifies three elements: incentive, opportunity, and rationalization. These elements must be present for cheating to occur. Just one or two alone are not enough, but the three together create the perfect conditions for a cheating trifecta. So, what did I find? While incentive and opportunity do in fact contribute to cheating, my research found that what really drives academic dishonesty is rationalization. The more students can justify using these tools, whether it's because they feel overwhelmed, think their assignments aren't meaningful, or believe they won't get caught, the more likely they are to cheat. In fact, rationalization had the strongest correlation to dishonest behavior. Now, this research isn't about banning AI tools. It's about offering solutions. We can't ignore the fact that our students will be entering an AI-driven workforce and that AI is here to stay. Instead, we must teach our students how to use these tools ethically, and we need to reshape the way we evaluate learning. Providing clear guidelines, designing meaningful assignments, and creating an open dialogue about academic integrity are key steps in reducing cheating temptations. If we can understand why students cheat, we can begin to develop strategies to prevent it. And by teaching students how to use AI responsibly, we can prepare the next generation for an AI-driven workforce without compromising academic integrity. Thank you.
If we could ask the participants to line up alphabetically, starting with Regina, and we're going to get you to line up on the stage as we go down the line. Jennifer, Ann, Kimberly, Adrian, Brooke, Karen, Vahavi, Daniela, Deepak, and Amber. got it. Very good. Okay, now for audience participation. Remember that brochure or that program you've been carrying around? Turn to the back and look for that QR code. And now's the time to vote for the People's Choice Award winner. And in addition, we have refreshments waiting for you upstairs. So if you will exit the building going upstairs, and it is provided by the Student Money Management Center, and you'll find coffee and probably pastries.
And they'll have to come back.
And of course, we ask you to come back for the presentations. We're going to let the judges sequester, and we thank you. Well, welcome back, everybody. And at this time, I would like to have a word from the judges as they give us a synopsis of what they saw across all presentations. And Ms. Sanchez.
Working now, perfect. Thank you so much. So thank you so much, especially to the University of North Texas and to the Toulouse Graduate School for having us here as judges today. It's been such a privilege and an honor, and a true special thanks to Dr. Opong for actually helping to bring the 3MT competition to this university. It's such an outstanding competition and so innovative and insightful, and we are just privileged to be a part of this. We judges actually took quite a while to deliberate because it was a very, very difficult decision. You all did such an amazing job, really outstanding presentations, and we were just so impressed with all that you put into those 3 minutes. It was really incredible to see your synopsis and to really learn about your research. Every one of them are so innovative and so integral to what we're doing to improve communities and improve lives, including around the world. So again, it was a really difficult decision for us. It came down to actually just nuances between the presentations. One of the difficulties of being a judge is we had to really bring it down to just very tiny details. But you all did such an outstanding job. And we also wanted to praise and thank you because each of you have actually become very successful already by being here. This is a huge accomplishment just by being part of this competition. And I wanted to say that even though we will have the first and second place as well, and we will have an audience favorite, all of you are winners, absolutely, for doing this. And we will be available afterwards if you'd like to come and talk with us about what we saw. But in all of your presentations, we saw this not only beginning, middle, and end, and great statements about your problem, great introductions, captivating us and making us interested in what you're doing, but we also saw your passion, and that really was integral to these presentations. It's your passion and your drive and your energy for the research that you're doing that's really going to make you noticed and move you forward. And as I always like to say, having done this competition before as a judge, it's your passion that's going to really get you out there in the business world and in the industries. My very first analyst I ever hired was just as qualified as everyone else I was interviewing and on their resumes. But it was their passion when they started talking about their projects and what they were doing in their schoolwork and what they were doing with their research that pushed that person to the top. That person got noticed, and I knew that if I hired that person, if I gave them a project, that passion was going to equally be transferred to any project I gave them. So please keep that in mind because it's that passion that's going to carry you forward. And again, really get you noticed out there. So tremendous work on all of your parts. We were so excited to be a part of this and just an honor to not only meet all of you and see what you are working on, but to be inspired by all that you're doing today. So thank you all for having us here and having us being a part of this presentation. Great work.
It's time to talk about money, isn't it? It really is. As we call your names for the different awards, I'm going to ask you to stand on stage and remain standing so that we can get a photographer get a shot at you, figuratively speaking. The first award we'd like to announce today is the People's Choice Award. Ladies and gentlemen, that goes to Daniela Vargas Trujillo. And I have to say, those are snazzy graduation medals you're wearing. Ladies and gentlemen, runner-up is Amber Williams. I don't recall seeing the UNT brass band in the back of the room. Do we have a set of snare drums? A drum roll, please, from the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of today's competition is Adrian Heckart.
We started with 27 and worked it down to these. It's amazing. Good job. Thank you, everybody.
Mike, it's over to you, right?
Yes, sir.
And we're done.
Congratulations. And congratulations to all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here for the 3MT competition at the University of North Texas. That concludes our competition, and we hope to see you next time.